All right, today's guest, we're mixing it up a little bit, getting outside of the realm of a high school bench. We're bringing in Jared Berggren today, who's a skills trainer with Catalyst Training. We have some unprecedented times with the coronavirus, COVID-19. And so I wanted to bring Jared on to talk about what he does, but also some ideas for high school coaches as they move through the summer window with maybe not being able to work with their athletes. So Jared, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, perfect, man. Thanks for having me.
First question I always ask is, what's your Wikipedia page? Because most high school coaches don't have a Wikipedia page. You do, but unfortunately, it's Mike Bruzewicz on the display picture. So, for those of you that
I
aren't
know.
familiar with you, what's your background and how'd you get into skills training?
That's funny, man. I actually my teammates and stuff make fun of me all the time for that. They're like, "Oh, sweet Wikipedia, man. Got Bruiser on there," which is pretty funny. No, so my background, just to give you kind of a quick overview, is I grew up in Princeton, where you obviously coach now. You weren't my coach. You came in after I graduated, but so grew up in Princeton, just a regular kind of small town kid. When I was coming up, really once I got to like my sophomore year of high school, I guess people started noticing me, saying, okay, this big guy in Princeton, he might become something. And we had a senior on the team who was Scott Rail at the time, ended up playing at Southwest State, Minnesota. Really good Division II kid. So he was getting recruited then as a senior, and these D2 schools started seeing me like, okay, where's this kid? Where's he getting recruited by? Where's he playing AAU? And I don't know, I'm not doing anything. I just play in Princeton, and they're like, okay. You get plugged in with Howard Pulley, who was, really the best AAU program in the state at the time. Ended up going down there, ended up making the top 17 team as a 16-year-old right off the bat, which was pretty cool. So I went from playing in, small town Princeton to all of a sudden playing in AAU tournaments around the country against, Blake Griffin and some of these top NBA players, a couple months after that. So it was really an interesting experience for me. Ended up going from there, getting recruited, playing at the University of Wisconsin. Had my 5 years there with a redshirt year. And then once I finished there, I had a chance I was on the radar to get drafted. I had a couple NBA teams that were interested in potentially selecting me with a late second round pick. Obviously did not end up getting drafted, but had several teams interested in taking me for the NBA Summer League. Went and played summer league with a handful of different teams over the years. I played with Orlando and Cleveland my first summer, and then other summers I played with Detroit and Milwaukee. But anyways, when that didn't work out in the summer league, I had a chance to go to training camp with some teams, but it would have been, kind of 99% chance I end up in the D League, as it was called at the time, which in 2013, when I was coming out, the D League was much different than what the G League has grown into today. Just wasn't a lot of money in it. There's still, you still probably make more money most places overseas than you do in the G League now, but it's definitely much more competitive than what it was then from a financial standpoint. So I took a deal to go overseas, played in Belgium for 2 years. Then I went in Italy for 2 years, played there. I did 1 year in Japan, and then last season, been home for about a year now. Last season I was in Switzerland, and then kind of long story short, I have a daughter who's about 2.5 now, and a little boy on the way, hopefully sometime soon, actually. So just with a young growing family like that, moving all over the world, playing overseas isn't really the easiest thing. So kind of made the switch from being a player to plugging in and being a trainer, working with Reed Osei, which I'm sure some of your listeners will be familiar with him. He's really developed himself as the top trainer in the state and even around the Midwest. He's doing stuff all over the place and really growing our brand with Catalyst Training. So Reed was my guy, working me out in the summers when I was home from overseas, and really developed a great friendship with him. And so when I had the chance he wanted to bring me in to, kind of help him out on the training side, it was a good transition for me to stay around the game and on the training side, and not have to keep moving all over the world, like I said. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
When you first work with a player and you're evaluating them, what are you looking for to judge where to start with their skill development?
So I would say I like to look at a couple different things. One would just be their general comfortability with a ball. So I want to get everyone needs to be able to handle the ball. This isn't the 80s basketball when you have your big guys that just sit on the block and shoot hook shots and rebound. You know, basketball today is becoming more and more positionless. So we want everyone to be able to handle the ball, at least in some capacity. Check their feet. Can they stop off either foot? Can they jump off either foot? Can they, maintain balance in different situations? Are they, how are they controlling the ball and controlling their body? Those are just kind of universal things that we want to look at and try to improve regardless of position.
How do your workouts differ between an 8th grade youth team and a high school varsity program?
Not that much, to be honest. So it'll obviously be ramped up and more, we'll combine more things, the intensity, the speed, the details a little more with older players and give them more variations to challenge them. But it all kind of starts the same, where we're going to go the first couple workouts, we're going to do some really simple stuff. We're going to get into a lot of times what we call our drop stance, which is essentially just getting our feet split to an explosive position, how you can shift your weight side to side there, how you can explode out of that position, and how you can stop. So a lot of times I'll challenge guys to do very basic, what we call a speed stop, which is just a 1-2 stop versus a jump stop. Not that a jump stop is wrong by any means, but I like to see, can you control your feet and do you know what your feet are doing? Okay, so that's kind of step one. A lot of times we'll say, okay, let's explode out of it, boom, then can you stop on a dime right here? And it's maybe they can do it going to their right, stopping left, right. But when we go to the left and I want you to stop right, left, they start going right, left, right, because they're not used to being able to stop off either foot. So like, okay, do you feel what you're doing? And some may or some may not. So that's kind of step one, is like, do you even know what your feet are doing? And if you don't, let's get those dialed in and get those under control. Because then, right, if you don't feel your feet and know what your feet are doing, you're going to struggle to build into some of this more advanced footwork and, finishing techniques and all this stuff. So it starts there. Obviously, you'd like to think older players are going to pick that up a little quicker and be able to advance more. But we really are going to start the same way, and then just kind of how players pick it up, how far we can advance and how quick we can advance it.
So you talked about speed stop. I know some people will call that a stride stop. What is your preference between a speed stop versus a jump stop?
Honestly, I prefer a speed stop. I mean, it's quicker and you're condensing your space more. So the idea of coming to a speed stop, well, it's also situational. Okay. So I should say that first, because it's situational. Like if you want to stop as quick as possible to get separation for a jump shot, like if we're playing one-on-one and I'm attacking and I hit the brakes, the idea of a speed stop is for me to be able to hit the brakes quicker than the defender can. So if I hit the brake, I start to hit the brakes, but then I let myself hop forward like a jump stop, right? I'm losing that space and that, the quick split second that it takes for me to travel forward like that. Okay. So that's my preference, is a speed stop for that. Number one. Number two is it's clear what your pivot foot's going to be. So a lot of times, I mean, just to be honest, not attacking anyone, because I think it's a super hard job, but high school refs and below are not great, right? I mean, I think all your listeners are probably going to agree with that. There's some that are obviously very good, and some that, teams are struggling or leagues are struggling to find refs now, because it's a very hard job, and it's a, kind of a, you take a lot of heat, you don't get a lot of praise, so refs are not great. So sometimes you come to a jump stop, you look a little bit off balance, the player might not necessarily know what they can do there, and all of a sudden they step 1 foot forward and they're like, oh, travel. Why is that a travel? If I landed on 2 feet, I should be able to pivot off either foot, right? That's the whole idea of a jump stop, why you would want a jump stop. But you see that called all the time. A guy comes to a jump stop, they don't know what their pivot foot is. Ref doesn't know what their pivot is. Now they're off balance and they lean forward and kind of tap their foot forward. Oh, travel. Okay. So if you come to a speed stop, now it's clear. I come to a 1-2 stop. Now I have my pivot foot. I can move, So those are a couple advantages why I prefer that. But obviously there's times that jump stop is going to be, necessary or correct for that, situation.
We always tell our guys, there's a reason I'm not coaching in the NBA. There's a reason they're not reffing in the NBA. They're going to make mistakes. There's going to be human error involved as well. And that's a good point. Because, we see that a lot too. When if it's our guys or, other teams that we're scouting or we're playing against, they take that jump stop and they just look unbalanced, and the ref dings them for traveling when really it looked awkward. And sometimes they fall, coaches even on their oh, yelling for travel, when really it's just
Yeah,
like
for
they're
sure.
falling victim to the body language, right? They look like they don't know what they're doing, so
Yep.
they could call it
Yep.
travel instead of actually looking at the footwork.
Yeah. So
I
we
want to get
talk about,
into,
yeah, like with the one more quick thing on that.
yeah,
So
go for it,
with the speed
for
stop,
sure.
you have two breaks essentially, right? If you stop 1, 2, there's 2 feet hitting separately. You hit the brake there, you hit the brake there, right? If you come to a jump stop, both feet are in the air, you land together, and then like you said, you're hitting at one time. You have one break, and then if you start kind of shuffling that foot forward, a lot of times it's called the travel, whether it actually is or is not. But yeah. So again, let's move on. But last
Yeah,
point
I
on
know
that.
that's good stuff. I think that's really relevant, and that's what I want to make this about is how this coaches can hear this, and that's relevant stuff. Teaching 1-2
Hmm.
versus jump stop.
Yeah,
So
for
when
sure.
you're working out with your guys, do you have a preference, or what is like the decision to go 1-0 versus like 1-1 or 2-2, a small sided game versus a on air drill?
A big factor in that is obviously the time of year. So during the season, I really for the last couple months here. I mean, obviously once the season ended here, haven't really been in the gym with my guys here with what's going on. So during the season, I'd have guys that would come in for extra work on their days off on Saturday or Sunday or whatever. And during that time, we really wouldn't do anything live just because the risk is not worth the reward. So it's yeah, so I'm not trying to get guys hurt in the middle of the season. Even in the fall, in the preseason, I'd be cautious with it. Like obviously you guys have to be playing to prep you for the season, but we try to limit it. And then even during the summer too, I'm trying to get feedback from my guys and say, okay, did you just play AU tournament this weekend and play 5 games in 2 days, and then you come in on Monday and you're like, hey, let's play some more. So I'm like, okay, maybe we'll take it a little bit easy, try to get feedback from them. How's your body feeling, especially with the older guys. Younger players, they're middle school age, they just play, and
Right.
they're not getting sore and achy knees or anything like that. So I try to get feedback from my guys, because obviously I played at a high level for 6 years overseas, and my 5 years of college. That was 11 years of high level basketball, that I kind of know how that grind and wear and tear goes on your body. But I would say in general, we get a split where we would start the workouts, kind of working skill stuff, and we kind of go through some different series of different footwork options and finishing options, and then depending on the length of the workout, the last 15 minutes maybe we get into some live stuff, or sometimes I'm even just giving like kind of dummy looks where I'm either hitting them with a pad, or just using my big frame to challenge shots and finishing at the rim and stuff like that. So we try to find a balance for sure.
June and July rolls around. Minnesota Department of Health says, no groups bigger than 6 or 10 or whatever the case may be. So you're a high school coach. You have a summer program. You're looking forward to getting your guys in the gym. Now that's shut down. What are some ideas for you, or maybe a basic template that you would encourage a high school coach to use in June and July when they can work with their guys again, but from a distance?
So it's tough. Yeah, it depends. It depends what ends up happening here, obviously. One thing I'm doing now, I mean, just to kind of plug myself here, is I'm doing, live online sessions with my guys. So I'm working with a handful of your guys, some guys from other schools in the area. Um, so I'm doing live, one-on-one sessions or group sessions with guys where we're going, you don't necessarily even need a hoop. If you have a hoop at home, obviously that's great. Not everyone does. So we do, 30-minute sessions. We're working on, ball handling and footwork. I work right out of my garage here, and just kind of taking guys through, showing them, different techniques, where your feet should be going on this, how you're shifting your weight and your balance, what you're doing with your off arm to protect, or dipping your shoulder, trying to simulate like if you're attacking in a game, right? You obviously don't want to be straight up and down, just little details like that. So that's one thing. If you end up getting into to group stuff, like in the summer for you, if like, because you've done a great job running your full team stuff in the summertime, right, in those June July period that you're allowed contact with them. If you are in a situation now where you can't do that, right? You can only have maybe a couple guys in the gym. You don't want to run it that way. You want to get your full team in there. It's going to be challenging. So I would say you have to take advantage of online resources, right? There's a ton of stuff you can find on social media. My guy Reed Ose, that's Ouse. Doesn't really sound the way you'd pronounce it, right? So give you the spelling, but so yeah, Reed does a ton of stuff, posting drills, ball handling moves. We're actually working on an app that we have coming out, hopefully in the next couple weeks here. We'll get some more details on that on our website on basketballcatalyst.com. But we're trying to, navigate this kind of uncharted territory here too, where it's, we're trying to provide resources for kids to be able to work from home and give them some guidance. But there's a ton of stuff online. You can go on YouTube, find drills, or try to take advantage of using Zoom, doing live stuff that way too. But it's definitely uncharted territory here, and But the most important thing I think is to try to get guys doing something. So all the guys I'm working with online now is, I'm pushing that message to them. This is going to be the longest off season you're ever going to have, and you're going to find out who's working and who's not. Maybe more so than ever, you're going to be able to separate yourself from the pack, because not everyone is going to be putting in work right now. A quick example of that, I took a guy through a online workout as a one-on-one session with him. And at the end of the workout, we did, I try to give him some quick kind of conditioning stuff. We're going, quick slides or quick jumps for a minute straight, just trying to simulate some of the stuff, some of the movement they're not getting right now. And by the end of it, he was like, this is the hardest thing I've done in 3 weeks. I'm like, dude, I had more in store for you here today, but, we cut it short because I could see you're dying, so, and he wasn't, he's admittedly not a great player. He's young, he's ninth grade, big guy, growing into his body, but you're going to be able to tell who's working, who's not. And if you just sit around, the whole time say, oh, I can't do anything anyways, and kind of use those excuses, when we get back in the gym, you're going to struggle, and you're going to see the guys who were actually working.
I'm not a workout extraordinaire myself by any means. You can look at me and see my body type, but I try to do a little cardio. My wife just got us doing the Beachbody on Demand free 2-week trial. Man, you can tell I haven't done anything. I haven't even walked in the hallways of school in weeks. You can feel it, man. It's crazy when
it goes
that
quick.
conditioning goes away when you're not doing anything, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's say in normal times, right? I'm a first-year head coach. I come in. I want to run a summer program. What would you encourage a new high school coach to have, or what would a 90-minute summer workout look like for you if you were advising a high school, a new first-year head coach at a high school program?
So kind of just to take you through kind of how I would structure my workouts when I did some of the my full team programs that I ran in the fall, like preseason stuff, or the stuff I've run in the summer with full teams. We start pretty much every day with some ball handling. We'll usually start with just like stationary stuff where we're just going, feet are planted in the floor. We're just working on our hands, being able to manipulate that ball into different positions, give them different challenges to handle that ball. And then we'll start working on our feet a little bit before we even go to the basket. Well, usually how I like to do things is we'll kind of go through like one series for the day. So we'll work on one specific move. I don't really love to call them moves because it's more than that. It's skills and techniques, and but we'll focus on one or two kind of skills that we'd like to really drill that day. So we'll start usually kind of tying in that footwork with some ball handling on the move, where let's give you an example, what we call an inverted drag. So your boy Tate Labs would do this a lot, where it's basically between the legs, but you're stopping on your inside foot. So let's say if I'm driving to my right, I would plant my left foot out in front, and I pull the ball between my legs as I'm kind of shifting my weight back and pulling my body back away. Tate would do this all the time, naturally. Okay, so if we're working on that, what we call inverted drag, maybe we do that on the move a couple times, sideline to sideline, getting guys moving, seeing how they plant, right? Plant that foot, come into a quick, hard stop, shift their weight back, pull the ball away, right? What are we doing with our off arm? What are we doing with our weight shift, with our feet, right? And we'll kind of drill those things, and then we'll go to the hoop, and we'll start working on some different finishes. We'll always start pretty much around the basket, working on some stuff, some touch drills around the rim, work our way out into some floaters, some kind of mid-range options. And then we'll start tying in those attacks off the bounce, right? We're going off a live dribble, off of a catch, tying in those kind of series, giving you different options where if we get to this point, all right, we stop here, defender goes flying by, we have space for a jump shot. They recover on this, okay, I pull the ball back. Now they close out to me again, boom, now I can attack back to the middle or back to the baseline, right? I'll give them kind of the reads and what they're looking for off those things. We'll go off the bounce, attacking the rim for a while, and then we'll start getting into maybe some different depending on the time of year, again, like I talked about earlier, either some competitive stuff or maybe some 2-on-0, 3-on-0 stuff where we're going, drive and kick options, try to simulate those kind of game actions a little bit, get guys moving where they're passing and catching as well as attacking and shooting. And then maybe finish with some competitive stuff, maybe short-sided games, things like that, or just kind of shooting competitions. Those are that's kind of my broad overview of kind of how I'd structure a workout in general.
What are strengths and weaknesses of today's players?
Um, so first I'll say players today are definitely more skilled than they were when I was coming through. So I think about myself as a high school player, and I think about like what I did, and honestly, I laugh and I think like I was not a good player. Like I mean, I was, because I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I was recruited to a Big Ten school, and all this stuff. I put up like good stats in high school, but I was 6'10", moderately athletic at best, and very limited in my skills. I was just tall and had, somewhat decent touch. But I was like, my feet were terrible. My body was terrible just in terms of, I don't think I ever had myself in real good shape. I didn't know. I thought I was working hard. I'd be, oh, I'm going to go in and lift weights after school every day, come in before school and shoot and all this stuff. Thought I was working hard, but I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I was just kind of aimlessly going through it. I think there's much more resources and just opportunities for kids today that they're just at a higher level physically, from a skill level. You look at your guy this year, like Cody Miller, 6'7", but he handles the ball, he shoots the ball. Right, I wasn't doing that. Like I have clips of him where he's getting a rebound in your Monticello game that I was at this year at Monticello. He gets a rebound, he goes full court, comes down and kind of Euro steps and finishes on a guy. I'm like at 6'7", like I was a 6'10", a little bigger than him, a little different than him, but the skill level just was not there, of what it is today. So with that being said, I think skill level is higher. Some of the weaknesses, I would say, one that I see, I mean, I think I see the game different just with my experiences. I think players don't necessarily read the game well. Like I said, I probably see things a little different, playing 6 years professionally and having a ton of, film work and things like that. I don't know if it's necessarily worse than what it was at our time. I'm sure it's probably better. Just my perspective is much different than what it was, at that time. A couple other things I would say is, one that I see all the time is just knowing when to try to get all the way to the rim and when to kind of pull up, maybe shoot a 6 to 8 foot kind of floater, or just come to a stop and kick, right? You still see a ton of guys, just barreling in and running over guys and getting offensive fouls. And that's a huge pet peeve of mine. I think probably just the way I kind of developed as a basketball player, like at the University of Wisconsin, like we took a ton of charges and that was an emphasis of ours. And we also took care of the ball. So we never wanted to be the team, running into guys and getting offensive fouls and things like that. So that's something that really was just drilled into me, that now when I see players doing that, attacking out of control and running guys over for offensive fouls, it kind of drives me nuts. So that's something that stands out to me, is guys just being able to find that limit of being aggressive, but not being over aggressive, running into guys, knowing when to shoot that little floater or kick the ball and keep it moving.
That comes back to the footwork talk from earlier, is that if guys are, if they're not comfortable with a 1-2 stop or a jump stop, then they're going to barrel into someone in that outside of that charge circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you watch a lot of high school games. Let's get into like a more of an X's and O's philosophy. Obviously, you've seen the game that you mentioned, 11 years playing high level basketball. From an X's and O's perspective, and I don't know, you probably watch way more high school games in person than I do, just because you're out watching your guys you work out with and making connections with programs. What are some things that you noticed on the offense and the defensive end that was working really well in today's game from a team perspective?
So that's interesting. When you laid out some questions that you wanted me to talk on today, and when I saw that one, it's a really interesting question, because I think there's a lot of different ways that you can be good, right? Like you can be a team that relies on your talent. Obviously, if you have talent, you're just boom, we're just gonna space the floor and let guys go to work, right? That you can do that, and there's teams that are excellent doing that. There's teams that don't have, or maybe you have a big guy, you just throw the ball inside and let them work, right? And space the floor with, maybe you have a couple shooters, right? Or maybe you don't have anything, where you have to rely on making good hard cuts, setting screens, moving off the ball, doing all that stuff. So there's a lot of different ways you can be good, but I think you have to, and maybe this isn't a great answer, but you have to find what your identity of your team is. So like for you guys this year, and last year I didn't watch you guys as much. Obviously, I was still overseas. But this year, you guys had a bunch of athletic guys. You play fast, and your big guys were skilled, right? Like Cody Miller and Jake could stretch the floor and shoot the ball, and they'd get out and run. And you'd have Hayden Stay, who's a super strong athletic guy, where he's running the floor hard, and you guys did a great job of getting rebounds and looking ahead, and you're just pitching the ball ahead and running out and getting easy ones, right? That puts pressure on the defense. So you guys found your kind of identity and played to those strengths, where you're using the speed and athleticism you have, using that aggressiveness, right? And then you have other teams where they try to slow it down and grind it out a little bit, where there you have to be really disciplined, right? So you have to set good screens, you have to make good passes, make hard cuts, right? And present or take what presents itself, right, with open opportunities, and be smart. So there's a lot of different ways to be good, but I think it's just kind of finding what fits your personnel, right, and your style and your preference.
I'll give you a little time here, the last 8 to 10 minutes or so here to plug what you're doing and plug Catalyst. So talk about your job with Catalyst Training, and under normal circumstances, what kind of services would you offer to high school programs?
So we do anything from youth stuff all the way through, high school teams. We work with college teams and pro guys as well. So we do a little bit of everything. Some stuff I've done in the past is I've run, full youth programs, and Reed has done the same thing, a couple of youth programs that he'll run. He'll take all the teams, either have them all together, or he's done some stuff too where he's done like have a couple teams, have one or two teams coming together. We'll focus on skill stuff, and then kind of build into some of those competitive aspects like we talked about before, playing some short-sided games, things like that. In the fall, I had a handful of teams that I do, their preseason programs for them. So where a lot of teams do, maybe they just have captain's practices or open gyms through the fall trying to get ready. Our role would be to kind of step in those periods when coaches have to be hands off with their programs, instead of you guys just coming in and, just kind of helter-skelter pick up games that may or may not be organized depending on what kind of leaders you have on your team, right? That we come in and say, okay, let's give you guys some legit skill work, some structure, make it educational, make it challenging, keep guys accountable, who's there, who's working, right? And then give them some structure to their programs that way, as well as obviously letting them play a little bit, because they need that, getting into the preseason so they're ready to go. And then in the summer, I do a lot of, obviously in the past, we would do more camps. This summer, we'll see what happens with, this coronavirus stuff, if we're allowed to do kind of big group stuff like that. Right now, it's obviously not looking great. So maybe at some point this summer that, if they open it up to allowing small group stuff, that's what probably kept me busiest last summer, would be kind of the small group stuff, which we consider any like 2 to 6 kids, where I try to do my best and group them together once I get to know kids, try to group them together. We have a good group of point guards here, wings here, right? Where if I have a couple big guys, I can put them together. We can focus more on that stuff. I wouldn't say that's necessary entirely to make it positional. Like I said, the game is becoming more and more positionless, where you want guys to be able to finish around the rim in a variety of ways, regardless of their position. Want them to be able to handle the ball and control their feet, regardless of their position. A lot of that stuff becomes universal anyways. We talk about, coming to a speed stop or a jump stop, right? Coming to these different, footwork options. You could use it on the perimeter. You can use it in the post a lot of times, very, very similarly. So yeah, I would do a lot of kind of that small group stuff. We do 1-hour sessions where kind of what I said before. We start with kind of the ball handling, working on our feet, start around the rim, work on finishes, and then build our way out into different, trying to expand your game again, depending on time of the year. Whether it's more focused on getting your game reps right now, like when we were in season, I'm not going to have guys, we're not going to spend 10 minutes working on our left-handed floaters because you get in the game and you shoot that shot. Coach is like, what the heck are you doing, right? But if it's in the middle of the summer and we have a couple months to add new things, right, I'm going to give guys more freedom and say, hey, you're going to miss a lot of these right now, and that's okay. Don't be afraid of it. Let's work on that weekend. Let's work on extending on our finish, where I know you guys can make a simple layup, but what happens when, there's a 6'7" post in front of you with his arms out and you have to extend that ball out, outside of your shoulder? Can you extend the ball away from your body and finish out there, right? You're going to miss some of these to start, but let's try to add, new things to our game, where that's kind of getting that small group setting is really beneficial to, expand guys' horizons to not only do what they do with their team right now, but to be able to kind of get outside of the box that they might have themselves in now and just see what they can really become as a player.
I like what you said about adding something during the off season, but also I think that I fell victim to this as well. We try to keep our practices during if it's November or if it's February, we're going no more than 90 minutes on the court. Maybe we get to 100 minutes early in the year. First couple weeks, but really want to keep it 90 minutes where we're snapping around. And we get into a little bit too much too, where we could probably work on some more one-on-one stuff. But I like what you said, because that's kind of the way the coaching world is changing. You hear a lot of coaches talk about there'll be a lot of coaches out there who probably listen to this who will be, why do stuff one-on-one? Why do stuff versus air? But I like how you added in that where you'll talk through the situation with guys. So it's not like, hey, go do a Euro step, go do a pro hop, go do an inside finish, go do a floater. Right. You're actually talking the situation where you mentioned what you're noticing from your lens in the bleachers of watching a lot of high school kids is that they're struggling to make reads. But by you, you're doing it one-on-one, but you're talking through when this situation would work so that they can process it and they know, okay, Jared's not just having me do this inside finish to kill time and make money. He's actually talking through a situation with me.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's what, we try to do to, somewhat separate ourselves from the other trainers out there. I mean, there's a ton of guys. Some are great. Some are, just collecting money, like you said. And it's, we try to really teach the game and make players understand the why behind everything. So a lot of guys you see are just like, okay, go dribble around this cone, go behind your back, go between your legs, and then go do a reverse layup. And you're like, what? Like, why? What am I doing? Like, and then there's, coaches that I understand that kind of hate these trainers, right? They're like, oh, have all these guys doing all these fancy dribbling drills against cones. What good is that? Cones don't have hands. Cones don't play defense. I understand that, right? And there's a time and place for everything. Okay, so it's breaking down the skills and details behind it, 1-on-0, right? Or maybe having a cone, or maybe and then eventually having me play, a little dummy defense where when you guys go make this move here, right? Keep that ball hidden at your back hip, where I'm going to be reaching at you guys. Okay, now nope, you expose the ball. I'm slapping out of your hands here. Okay, so then you're focusing on those little details of, all right, ball placement matters, foot placement matters, all these things. And then trying to make them use their imagination to, okay, that defender's aggressive. Now, can I retreat, dribble, and spin out of this? Can I use that aggressiveness against them? Right? Can I step into them, bumping with my inside shoulder, my off arm, right? Not extending, getting offensive fouls, but finding the balance of, can I be physical to open up that space, right? And kind of using your imagination, and then trying to put them into situations where they play out of it and apply it to the game. But there's always a balance of doing stuff 1-on-0, because you have guys that are superstars in workouts, right? You put them 1-on-0 and you're like, this guy's super skilled, super smooth. He shoots it, he's quick, handles it. And then you put him in a game and he just, he doesn't have that competitiveness to him, that toughness and drive to really get the job done. And then you have guys that they're not skilled at all, but they're tough. Maybe it's a football player that he doesn't work on his skills, and then he steps in and he's a good player just because he's gifted, he's aggressive, right? And he plays his role well. So production matters, right? So that's something that I think can get lost in this skill training. Is sometimes people think like, oh, I work with this trainer, I'm going to be good. I like to think I'm going to make you better for sure, right? But it's not a guaranteed result for me. You have to be tough enough to go apply it and get the job done. And if a football player that didn't touch a basketball all fall comes in, but he's tough, he's getting those rebounds, he's getting those loose balls, he's playing hard defense because he's, you know, a physical athlete that competes, right? Coach is going to go with him because that's what's getting results. So I know that almost takes away from me, right? Being like, okay, this trainer is saying I don't have to be a trainer, or I don't have to work with a trainer to have success, right? But then you think, okay, now what if that football player that doesn't have much skill, what if he did work with a trainer, right? So now he's not only a rebounder and a defender, but now he has a little bit of skill off the bounce, right? A little bit more touch on his shots, finishing around the rim, all that stuff. So there's always something you can add, but there's always kind of two sides of it where you have to have those skills, but you have to be able to, right, have enough toughness to apply it and just straight up compete to get the job done.
So I wanted to have you on for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, you're a Princeton grad, so I wanted to get you hooked up with this and hear what you're doing. But most importantly, for high school coaches, I wanted to bring Jared on because Jared is, and I have a few more questions for him, but Jared is really good at what he does. You mentioned Cody Miller, who was one of our guys as a junior, scored about 40 points, 50 rebounds or so. Probably could have played more. I mean, he was a high school caliber kid. We were just really good, and we were ranked in the top 4 in the state all season. And he unfortunately fell victim to having a good senior class. And one of my probably my biggest things I look back on, and would have moved the needle last year, I don't know, but he could have definitely gotten more run for us as I look back and reflect on last season. But he worked out with you, I think, 1 or 2 times a week from pretty much March until our season started last November. And kid averaged 18 and 8 for us this year, shot 35% from 3, 50% from the field, 70% from the free throw line. Like you said, 6'7" kid who can handle it. And he just took off. And obviously, most importantly, it's the work that he put in and his willingness to be coached and wanting to get better. But it's also a lot of what you worked with him. And so I know I've texted you and emailed you on the side telling you how much you've helped Cody's game develop. And another thing with what Jared will do for coaches that are sticking with us here is Jared is invested in the kids, right? He's not just a trainer who's going to go cash your check. I watched him come to multiple fall leagues and watch our guys play. I watched him, we're Snapchat friends, so I see him at St. Michael. I see him at Monticello. I see him at all these gyms of schools that he works with kids. So he's invested in your players too. He's not just trying to cash a check in the off season. And so I highly recommend Jared. He's really good at what he does, but he's also going to form that connection, that relationship with your guys that he wants them to be successful. So I just want to pump you up because, like I said, I'm not just bringing you on here. You guys you're not writing me a $200 check to come on here and pump Catalyst training. I wanted, obviously, you're a Princeton guy. I wanted to hear what you're doing, but also high school coaches, what Reed and Jared are doing are awesome. And I want to get into a little bit of your.
So can I tell one quick story on that?
For sure, absolutely.
Talking about me being invested in your guys here, right, or my guys here. At your Monticello game this year, when you're at Monticello, and it was, I don't remember, did it go to overtime or was it regulation?
No, Tate made 2 free throws with 4 seconds left, down 1.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember if it was regulation or overtime, right? But Tate was admittedly not a great free throw shooter. So we talked about
50%. Sub 50%.
So as a point guard, right? Like you don't want that. So we would joke about it. We'd always finish our workouts and we do a little free throw competition where it's basically you make 2, you have to match the guy in front of you. We'd have, your group of 4 or 5 guys with Cody Miller and Cody Alex and some of your guys that were super regular with me. And we do a little free throw competition. If Tate won, they're always laughing about it, like, "Oh, Tate's terrible. How do we lose to him?" And this, and then there was times when he was texting me on the side, like, "Man, I don't know what to do." So I went through that 2 years ago now when I was in Japan. I went there and I was just in a really bad place mentally. It just wasn't a comfortable living situation. I just had my daughter was just born. Almost 3 years ago now, I guess. So my daughter was just born right before I had to leave and go over there by myself, all this stuff, just in a bad place mentally. Started applying onto the court where I was really struggling. I couldn't shoot a free throw to save my life. I couldn't do anything to save my life. I just played terrible when I was there. But I was shooting like 40% from the free throw line, like unbelievably bad. And so I'm talking to Tate. I'm like, "Dude, I've been there. I know exactly how you feel. Like you feel like the whole world is staring at you when you go to the line." And I tried to give him a couple of tricks, like think about something else, right? Think about start talking to your teammates, because when we're there, we're relaxed in the gym shooting like that after our workouts. He's smiling, he's joking, he's making those shots. I'm like, you can do it. Everyone knows you can do it. When you get in that situation, you start overthinking, you put pressure on yourself, right? So I was giving him some little stuff, trying to help him out just mentally to be relaxed and just do your thing. So then, yeah, like you said, he makes 2 free throws with like 4 seconds left to win the game. I think, were you guys down 1?
We're down 1, yeah.
Yeah, so we made the first one, and I'm sitting here, and I'm nervous for him. I'm like, come on, take one. Makes the first one, yes. Makes the second one. I'm like, let's go. You guys win the game. After the game, I'm standing there. He comes across the court and comes up and gives me like a big hug. And I swear, I'm ready to like tear up here, because I'm
That's
invested in these
awesome.
guys. Like you said, like
Yeah.
I was with them through these struggles, and then for him to, celebrate with his team and then see me and come running over to me like, Jared, give me a big hug. Like, he's fired up, I'm fired up. So just for, it's such a rewarding experience for me to have my guys have success. It feels so good to, to see them succeed and accomplish the things we talk about. They're the goals we have. So yeah, it's absolutely, I'm invested. I'm in it with these kids. So that's what's fun.
Something just came to me that I want to ask, because I feel like this is something that I can be better at. I know we shoot a lot of threes, but I don't think I'm great at teaching shooting. So how do you teach shooting?
That's actually a really good question too, as a skill trainer. So if you want to talk about um like fixing a guy's technique, that's a really, really hard thing to do. Especially like if they're younger, it's maybe a little bit easier. But you talk about if you're gonna retool someone's shot, you need to be super consistent with them. So most of my guys that I work with, we go once or twice a week. That's primarily what guys are doing with me, right? And I don't think you should be coming with me more than that, because there's things I'm going to give you that you need to go work on your own without me, right? So if you see me once a week and I try to retool your shot, like, it's those other 6 days a week, it needs to be on you, right? So you have to be super disciplined to change things. So I don't necessarily look to make drastic changes to guys' shots. If there's something obvious where their guide hand is, pushing off the ball or doing something goofy, right? I'll say, okay, let's focus on 1 or 2 like small details. But otherwise, it's you try to you try to make their mechanics as smooth as possible. Everyone's going to be different, so don't try to make it cookie cutter and say, your elbow has to be right here and your wrist has to be right here, because it's, like I said, everyone's going to be a little bit different. But I try to just get guys to shoot it with confidence and be smooth and quick. So for most guys, it's, if they're hitching or they're, somewhat reluctant on the shot, you have to trust it. You have to get it out quick. And then, kind of simple things about being on balance. If they're drifting left or right, obviously you're going to be, a little lower percentage. So it's a really tricky thing to teach someone how to shoot, especially as they get older. Because like I said, everyone's going to be different. So it's interesting.
You have the film room. I know you talked about an app. You have like the film room tab on your website. So what
Yep.
other resources are available for coaches through Catalyst that they can look at online?
So we have a lot of stuff on there. We have like skill breakdowns, right? So it's different, different footwork, ball handling techniques. We have different team drills, right? We're talking about getting, maybe some 3-on-0, 4-on-0 stuff where it's drive and kick, getting guys to follow different patterns where they have to react to different people, driving and moving, trying to simulate those game actions as much as possible without always playing, 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. Sometimes I think it's beneficial to take the defense away entirely, just so things can be, somewhat scripted, but also having them, have to react and pass and catch and things like that. We have different, blogs on there where I've written a bunch of stuff about different ideas about, team chemistry, or how to handle, your strength training during the season, how to handle your body, how to handle breaking your season into segments where you have goals to, okay, before Christmas break, we want to be doing, X, Y, and Z, right? And after, in this period, we want to be established doing this. Okay. So you kind of segment the season that way. A lot of just different options there of my experiences, things that I've shared. Um, we have, what else do we have on there? Yeah, different set play options. Reed does a ton of stuff on that where he's breaking down like NBA sets or college sets, what are they running? What are their options on this? What decisions are they forcing the defense to make? So there's just a ton of stuff out there that, Reed does a majority of that. He's awesome with all this video breakdown, stuff like that. But it's really just great resources to take advantage of to give you guys fresh ideas. I mean, coaches always, I think, are picking and choosing from other people. So we try to just pick and choose from everyone for you, give you different options and kind of put it in one place to be kind of a one-stop shop for all different, coaches' resources there.
Giving you a lot of credit for our success we had this past year, but we hit a little rut in January. We weren't playing really good basketball. We had just went up to Hibbing and lost, went to North Branch and played a sloppy game, and I think won by only 7 or 8. And we just were at like a point of our season where it's like, which way are we going to go? Are we going to limp to 18-7, 18-8? Or are we going to try to get to 20, 21, 22 wins in the regular season, which we did. And I think it was on a Sunday. I was just scrolling Twitter, and you posted your blog about your Wisconsin drill that you guys used to do your drill you used to do in practice, where you do like look for 1 point per possession. You'd run like 20 possessions, offense or defense,
yep.
And then you'd run accordingly. So we installed that like that Monday, and we ran the piss out of our kids. And we don't usually run kids, but we did it where they had to play 6 possessions, and we did top group versus our second group. So maybe our top 5 versus our second 5, our top 6 with a sub second 6. And our top group had to get 5 possessions, get 6 points. And then the bottom group had in 5 possessions, get 5 points when they were on offense. And if not, they had to run half court back, depending on how many times short they were. So if top group needed 6, they only got 3 points. They had to go half back 3 times, right? And so, I mean, it was a really, really good drill. So I'll spare the details of how it worked for our programs. I want to make this about you, but just a ton of really good resources for coaches out there on your website. The blog stuff is great. I know I've looked at Reed's set breakdown stuff. That's really good as well. So really good stuff. And what's the website on that?
It's basketballcatalyst.com.
Basketballcatalyst.com. And if coaches want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact with Jared Berggren?
So you can find all my info on there. Or send me email. You'll find it on the website, but it's jared@basketballcatalyst.com is my email address. So you can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram. It's just @jberggren40 on both platform there. So so feel free to reach out, questions. If you got kids that you'd like to send my way, like I said, I'm doing kind of this online training stuff now where it's unprecedented times. Everyone's stuck at home, but I think sitting around and doing nothing isn't going to be good for the parents, for the coaches, for the kids. Everyone needs to stay active here because it's a tough time with everyone being stuck at home. So we're trying to just make the best of it, give guys some structure and accountability by kind of scheduling these online workouts, give them something they can do at home to, just make the best of a bad situation and try to stay ready whenever we can get back on the court and hit the ground running.
All right, thanks, Jared. Much appreciated, coaches. Hopefully you learned something from this, and I mean this. I've pumped my recommendations up. Reach out to Jared. Reach out to Reed. These guys are great. They're invested in your kids, and then even if you don't want to hire them out for your program, there's just a ton of good websites and membership stuff on their website as well that can benefit you as high school coaches. Thanks, Jared.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.